Going into tonight's Democratic debate, which was hosted by Univision and simulcast by CNN, Hillary Clinton was coming off a pretty disappointing showing in Michigan last night, a state where she was expected to win by as much as 18 points in some polls and ended up losing by a little under 2 polls. She did come out with more delegates on the evening since she won Mississippi by such a large margin and she competed so heavily in Michigan, only losing by, like I said, a little bit under 2 points. The debate tonight was essentially split up into three parts, and it didn't see the level of fireworks that we really saw in the debate off in Flint on last week, probably because of the fact that Hillary's campaign were probably telling her, that didn't really work for you too well. To a certain extent, that was the case, but not necessarily, and I'll go into that in a minute. The debate was really split up into three parts. Three main sections of questions. At least that's what I found it to be. And then you had some questions from the audience, some miscellaneous questions, things like that, from social media websites. So the first section, before they really even got into like a big part of the debate, was aimed at Hillary Clinton. Jorge Ramos disclosed that his daughter does work for the Clinton campaign. And so he did go out and ask her a really tough question to start off, kind of probably trying to dispel that notion that he was going to softball her all night. And the question was essentially about her emails and whether or not she would drop out of the race if she were to be indicted. And so I'm just going to play for you guys that clip. Keep in mind that I do not own the rights to this clip. All rights are for Univision and CNN. So you guys go.
I am not concerned about it. I am not worried about it. And no Democrat or American should be either.
The questions were, Secretary Clinton, the questions were, who gave you permission to operate? Was it President Obama?
There was no permission to be asked. It had been done by my predecessors. It was permitted. I didn't have to ask anyone.
If you get indicted, would you drop out?
Oh, for goodness, that is not going to happen. I'm not even answering.
So that pretty much sums up the night for Clinton. She seemed really rattled by some of the questions she was getting. A lot tougher questions at one time, at least, than she was typically used to getting. And you could definitely tell she had a little bit of an annoyed tone in some of the questions that came at her about the emails, about corporate interest on Wall Street, etc. So the first major part of the debate had to do with immigration and deportation. For the most part, both candidates really have similar policies in terms of not wanting to deport children and people that are already here, in direct contrast to what you see on like the Republican side, who pretty much want to get rid of everyone, at least in the case of Donald Trump. The one thing that was kind of contentious in this particular section was Hillary Clinton saying that Bernie Sanders essentially did not support a bill in 2007 that would have granted a path to citizenship to millions of illegal immigrants, And Bernie Sanders basically retorted this by saying, you know what, it was one of those things where there were good parts of the bill and there were bad parts of the bill. And the bad part far outweighed the good. So yes, I did vote no on it. And he even went as far as saying, I'll match my record with yours any day of the week. And I just thought that was the line of that night, because after that, you could really tell that Clinton was a little bit rattled in terms of the questions and going forward at the debates. And then at the end of this section, Clinton and Sanders pretty much came together denouncing Trump's plan to deport over 11 million illegal immigrants. But overall, on immigration, I would have to give Sanders the victory on this part of the debate, just because of the fact that Clinton really had no counteractive argument towards what Sanders was saying. Instead, she tried to throw dirt on his name, really, by picking out bills that he only voted against because of the fact that they contain very bad parts of them. And so just for that, I would have to give it to Sanders, because Clinton's argument was really null and void in that situation. She also made a point of trying to bring up this Wall Street bailout because the economy was also mentioned in this first 30 minutes of the debate. She kept trying to claim that Bernie Sanders did not support the auto industry, and she did this as well on Sunday at the debate in Michigan, which really backfired, I think, personally, in the polls, which you saw on yesterday. And Sanders came back and was essentially saying, no, I voted against the Wall Street bailout, which you probably supported because you support corporate interests. And Hillary Clinton really, once again, was rattled after that, really did have a concrete response to it. Sanders won this section by a mile, no doubt about it. Now, the second part of the debate really had to do with trustworthiness, more questions about the economy, education, and healthcare. Among some of the notable things that were brought up were the Benghazi scandal and Clinton's email scandals, which Clinton definitely got irritated at, like you could see in that first clip that I showed you. She was being asked about that pretty much all night. And while Sanders really has shied away from directly attacking her about it, the moderators certainly did not. And they continued to press the issue of why should the American people trust you? Now, I think Sanders won this section just by default because he has no controversies that people are asking him about. And Hillary Clinton, her refusal to release the transcripts from her Wall Street speeches just makes it really look suspicious that perhaps, like Sanders said, she might be saying one thing to the American people and another when she goes to give speeches on Wall Street. So just by default, I would have to give this part of the debate to Sanders and this part of the campaign really in general to Sanders because of the fact he's never been bought out by corporate interest. He's never had anything in terms of large donations from super PACs, etc. On the part of education, in this debate, I would have to give it to Hillary Clinton. I think she won on just practicality, in my personal opinion, although that is something that's up for debate. And if you do have a disagreement with that, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. Healthcare, once again, I think Hillary won this part of the debate. Once again, on practicality in terms of taxes and things like that being raised in the middle class. Now, part 3, which was climate change and a bunch of miscellaneous questions about Latin America and Puerto Rico's bankruptcy. This was really the last major part of the debate. I think that this was kind of a mixture of both. Sanders won on some of these questions like climate change, given the fact that Hillary has not really expressed complete refusal to support fracking and other things that are awful for the environment. Also, I think Hillary Clinton won on some other ones, such as Puerto Rico's debt, etc., and on the Latin American issues about Latin American dictatorships being overthrown by the U.S. government. Now, like I said, those were the 3 major parts of the debates. But my highlights of the night were Hillary Clinton refusing to answer whether or not Donald Trump was a racist, which was one of the first questions which was posed, which I really didn't understand why she wouldn't just come out and say it. Although I kind of believe that perhaps her campaign is telling her to tone down the rhetoric going towards Republicans and more so focus on Sanders, given the fact that Sanders won in Michigan. He's not done yet. You've still got a lot of work to do. So that could have been one of the reasons. The next moment was when Hillary was rambling on about immigration, I believe it was. Or no, actually it was clean energy solutions. And Bernie wanted to speak, and in a complete role reversal of what you saw on Sunday, Hillary said, "Excuse me, I'm talking," to Senator Sanders. I just thought that was really funny, especially if you saw the debate on Sunday, you would really, understand it. And then finally, Bernie was shown a video from 31 years ago, which was kind of odd, but I guess he was supporting some of Fidel Castro's socialistic and communistic principles of universal healthcare, universal education, etc. And he really never answered this question. So a lot of people might have at home that aren't too familiar with Bernie might have been a little bit confused on that. I would personally have to do some research on that video to be able to give a definitive answer, a definitive opinion on that. But he really never answered it, kind of shied away from it, and just kind of went off on a tangent about some diplomatic relations with the U.S. and Cuba. Now, overall, my awards for the night, the winner of this debate had to be Bernie Sanders. Hillary Clinton lost by a mile. It seemed like she really didn't learn anything from the debate in Michigan. She tried to kind of throw dirt on Bernie Sanders' record, which just doesn't work because on paper, Bernie Sanders has as for sure, it's not even up for debate, a better record on the majority of things such as the economy, climate change, Wall Street reform, regulating big banks, things like that, a lot better than Hillary Clinton does. And she's constantly tried to throw dirt on his name with the auto bailout versus the Wall Street bailout, etc. And it didn't work in Michigan. I honestly think it cost her the race in Michigan. So as a Clinton supporter, it's definitely something that I think she should shy away from. And if I were in her campaign, I would definitely tell her that she should try to, instead of going after Sanders, who has a proven track record of consistency, to perhaps try to bring positive lights to her own record and gain the trust of the American public. Because if she does win the nomination, which it's probably likely, at least statistically, then she's going to need Bernie Sanders' supporters' help in terms of getting past Donald Trump or whoever the Republicans nominate, which will probably be Trump. And I just think that this isn't the strategy that someone who's trying to do that needs to take. I think she needs to try to bring up her own record, try to improve her trustworthiness and her public view, as well as trying to win over independent voters. I also really didn't like how the Univision moderators kept cutting off Senator Sanders every time he tried to make a response to a policy difference between he and Secretary Clinton. I thought that was kind of rude, and I wasn't sure if perhaps there's a bias there or something. Now, I did tell you guys that Jorge Ramos' daughter does work for the Clinton campaign, but he really wasn't the one who was cutting Sanders off. It was the two other moderators. So that was a little bit weird. It seemed like he didn't get as much time as Hillary got to speak. And overall, neither candidate really got that much time to speak, which was really weird at a debate of such importance. But I do think that the Clinton campaign probably went out there with the intention of trying to sit on their big leads for next Tuesday in Missouri, North Carolina, Ohio, Illinois, and Florida, which they are projected to win by a pretty decent margin. But if Michigan told us anything, it's that polls cannot always be trusted. So once again, guys, I do hope that you enjoyed this commentary. If you did, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe for more upcoming coverage of upcoming debates as well as big political happenings for 2016. Thanks, guys, and I'll see you on my next video.